The moment my silver name card hit the marble floor and disappeared beneath a polished leather heel, I didn't get angry. I simply checked my watch. 8:14 p.m. The smirking young man standing over me had no idea he'd just signed the death warrant for his family's multi-billion-dollar empire. My name is Lawrence Sinclair, 58 years old. 3 decades navigating the unforgiving waters of venture capital have taught me one truth. The loudest people in any room are usually the most fragile. We were at table 3, the VIP section of the Crawford Holdings annual gala. Crystal clinked, sycophants murmured. My assistant, Audrey Mercer, sat beside me reviewing the final terms of a $1.3 billion capital injection on her tablet. A lifeline Crawford Holdings desperately needed to survive a looming debt crisis. Set to close the next morning. Then Adrian Crawford arrived, 26 years old, vice president of business development by birthright alone. A woman dripping in diamonds hung off his arm, her nose tilted as if the room's air wasn't clean enough for her. Adrian didn't check the seating chart. He walked straight to our table and rapped his knuckles on the mahogany. "This seat is taken," he said. "It's for my girlfriend. You and your assistant should head to general seating." "You don't belong here." Before either of us could answer, he snatched my engraved name card off the table, dropped it to the floor, and ground it under his heel until the metal scratched and dulled. Audrey shot up, furious. "Do you have any idea who you're talking to?" He ignored her, pulled out the chair, and seated his girlfriend like we were furniture. Phones rose around us, recording. I picked up the ruined card, set it back down, and looked him in the eye. "You shouldn't have done that," he laughed. "What are you going to do? Call security? My mother owns the security company." "She owns this hotel. She owns the company you're trying to leech off of." "What you just did," I said, loud enough for the phones to catch, "cost your mother exactly $1.3 billion. His smirk flickered, then hardened back into arrogance. He called his mother down. Vivian Crawford entered like the room owed her something. 55, immaculate, a mask of authority that had clearly never been questioned. "This section is reserved for our elite partners," she said, not even glancing at the scratched name card in front of me. "Security, escort this gentleman out." Audrey stepped in. "We have an official invitation. We represent Sinclair Capital." Vivian raised a hand, silencing her. "I don't care who you claim to represent." I stood without resistance, straightened my jacket, and looked at her one last time. "You won't remember this night the way you think you will, Vivian. You'll remember it as the exact minute you lost Crawford Holdings." She'd already turned away, scanning the room for someone more important. Outside, in the cool night air, I called my banker. "Cancel the wire transfer. The Crawford deal is dead." 3 blocks away, stuck in traffic, Miles Harrington, Chief Investment Officer of Harrington Capital, the company's largest shareholder, got the call from Vivian's secretary. The gala was going beautifully, she said cheerfully. There'd been a minor issue at table 3, some man causing a scene, but security had handled it. "You escorted who out?" Miles felt the blood leave his face. His phone buzzed a second later, an automated alert. The $1.3 billion had been retracted. Reason, material breach of respect and ethics protocols. "Turn the car around," he told his driver. "We're going to Sinclair's residence." Now, by the next morning, the tension inside Crawford Holdings headquarters was thick enough to cut. In the executive suite, Vivian addressed her board with practiced calm. "A minor misunderstanding. Nothing that affects our expansion." No one dared contradict her. The Crawford family controlled the board, and challenging Vivian was a fast way to end a career. In the hallway, Adrian laughed into his phone. That old man was some social climber looking for attention. Mom tossed him out like trash. "We're already looking at other funding." 2 floors down, in the CFO's wing, there was no laughter. Ronald Vance stared at a flatlined cash flow chart. "Phase 1 capital allocation is due in 48 hours, and the escrow account is showing 0. The Sinclair wire code was retracted last night. A junior analyst asked about requesting a delay from the contractors. Ronald snapped. "A delay means we default on our construction bonds. Our credit rating hits junk by Friday. We don't need a delay, we need a miracle." At my estate, the morning was calm, birdsong, black coffee, old oak trees. Audrey told me the phones had been ringing since 6 a.m. Miles Harrington 14 times, Vivian's office 8, even my personal attorney. Let them ring, I said. A man who can't control his own family can't be trusted with $1 billion expansion. Arrogance is a disease. I'm just letting it run its course. Minutes later, a black sedan pulled up. Miles Harrington stumbled up the steps, tie crooked, collar soaked through with sweat. Mr. Sinclair, thank you for seeing me. The board's in a panic. Without your $1.3 billion, Crawford Holdings faces insolvency by the end of the week. My father wants to know if there's any way to salvage this. I've known your father 20 years, I said. I respect Harrington Capital, but I don't partner with people who treat basic human respect as a luxury. Adrian threw my name card on the floor and stepped on it. Vivian had me dragged out like a criminal. They made their choice, now they live with it. Miles buried his face in his hands. I saw the video, it's already circulating among the major shareholders. Surely there's a solution, a public apology, a change in board structure. It's too late for apologies, I said and nodded to Audrey. She slid her tablet across the table. While Vivian and her son were busy playing rulers of high society, my team was auditing Crawford Holdings subsidiary accounts. We found 3 short-term loans, $85 million total, secured against Crawford's prime real estate, authorized by Adrian Crawford. Miles frowned. Adrian doesn't have authority to pledge corporate assets without board approval and the CEO's signature. Precisely, and Vivian's signature is on every resolution, but look at the dates. On the second loan, she was in Switzerland for a medical checkup, completely off the grid. On the third, she was in Tokyo. Our handwriting experts confirmed it, sophisticated forgeries. Miles turned white. You're saying Adrian forged his mother's signature? Through a Delaware shell company outside the main audit loop, the money didn't go to Crawford Projects. It went to a private entity controlled by Adrian and his girlfriend. I let that settle. Forgery is a felony under California law. Because the signatures are forged, those loan agreements are void from inception. The moment the banks find out, they'll call in the debt immediately. Miles stood, chair scraping against stone. This is fraud. If it gets out, the stock crashes. The family goes to prison. Which is why you need to decide where Harrington Capital stands, I said. Sync with the Crawfords or help me clear the wreckage. What do you want me to do? Tell your father to call an emergency board meeting for tomorrow morning, and tell him to keep his phone on. The real storm hasn't started yet. By Wednesday afternoon. The Gala footage had escaped the private circles of the wealthy and gone public under the title The Price of a VIP Seat at the Crawford Table. It showed everything, Adrian crushing the name card. Vivian's cold dismissal, security dragging me out like garbage, all set against my quiet, unshaken composure. 5 million views by the time markets opened. Crawford Holdings stock dropped 18% in the first 2 hours of trading. Nearly $400 million in market value gone. Erased by a family who'd thrown away a $1.3 billion lifeline to satisfy an entitled son's ego. At Sinclair Capital's legal office, my attorneys filed suit in the Delaware Court of Chancery, a personal action against Vivian Crawford for breach of fiduciary duty. As CEO and director, Audrey explained, reading from the filing, she owed shareholders a duty of care, loyalty, and good faith. Ejecting the lead investor of a $1.3 billion deal over a seating dispute involving her son's girlfriend was bad faith. It directly caused the deal's collapse and the stock's crash. We're seeking damages and an injunction freezing her executive powers. At Crawford headquarters, the phone lines were jammed with furious investors. Vivian called her chief legal counsel, Marcus. What is this garbage Sinclair filed? It was a private event. I have the right to remove anyone. Vivian, Marcus said flatly, you were there as CEO of a publicly traded company. The gala was funded with corporate money to court investors. The video shows you throwing out the man bringing in $1.3 billion. A court will see gross negligence. If this goes to trial, you lose, and the board can hold you personally liable. She slammed the phone down as Adrian walked in with his coffee, mildly annoyed. Mom, have you seen the stock price? Some activists want to boycott our retail centers. People are so sensitive. It was just a chair, she said, standing, eyes blazing. Just a chair. That chair cost us $400 million in 2 hours. That chair brought a federal lawsuit to my desk. Your arrogance is destroying everything I built. Adrian's smugness finally cracked. We can find another investor. There are plenty of funds in New York. No serious firm will touch us now. The video proves we're unstable. Her private line rang. Gordon Harrington. I don't want your explanations, Vivian. My son came back from Sinclair's house this morning and told me everything. Your son is a parasite, and you're a massive liability. Your pride cost my fund over $100 million today. I've called an emergency board meeting for tomorrow at 9. You can't force me out, Gordon. My family controls 40% of the voting shares. We'll see about that. You might control the shares, but you don't control the law. Prepare your defense. The line went dead. Vivian turned to her son, dread finally settling in. Get your lawyers, Adrian. Tomorrow is war. She believed her 40% voting block was an impenetrable wall. She had no idea the real weapon wasn't the lawsuit. It was the forged documents sitting on my desk, waiting. The morning of the emergency meeting, rain hammered the windows of the 45th floor conference room. Vivian and Adrian arrived early in designer suits, projecting control they no longer had. Across the table sat Gordon and Miles Harrington, alongside 4 other board members. At 9 sharp, the doors opened. Not a secretary, me with Audrey and our corporate attorney, Henderson, carrying a thick leather briefcase. Vivian shot up. This is a closed meeting, Lawrence. You retracted your investment. You're an outsider. I walked to the head of the table, sat, and placed my ruined name card in front of me. Actually, Vivian, I have every right to be here. Gordon invited me. He represents 35% of the voting shares, and I'm here as the largest creditor of this corporation. She laughed bitterly. Creditor? Our debt is held by commercial banks. You don't own a single bond. I nodded to Henderson. He slid documents across the table to Gordon and Vivian. Yesterday, Sinclair Capital purchased $85 million in short-term promissory notes from West Coast Capital, he said, secured against 3 of Crawford Holdings' premier retail properties. Signed and authorized by Adrian Crawford, Vice President of Business Development. Vivian turned to her son. Adrian, what is this? You don't have authority for those loans without my counter-signature. She's correct, I said. You didn't have the authority. So you solved that problem by signing her name for her. The room went silent. Page 3 is the forensic handwriting analysis. Page 5 is the digital audit trail. The electronic signature file was accessed from an IP address registered to your penthouse, Adrian, 11:30 p.m. on a Tuesday. That same night, Vivian, you were in Zurich at a medical conference. No internet access. Adrian's face drained. This is a lie. It's a setup. They hacked the system. Silence, Gordon roared. Henderson continued, unmoved. Forgery is a felony under California Penal Code Section 470. Because the authorizations are forged, the loans are void from inception. West Coast Capital has already declared a fraud default. Since Sinclair Capital now owns those notes, we're demanding acceleration, $85 million due in 24 hours. Vivian stared at the papers, then at her son. Tell me this is a mistake. Tell me you didn't do this. Adrian couldn't meet her eyes. It gets worse, I said. Crawford Holdings can't produce $85 million in a day. That triggers cross-default clauses on your other $300 million in commercial loans. The banks were notified at 8:30 this morning. As of 9:15, your primary operating accounts are frozen. You're technically insolvent. Vivian sank into her chair, every trace of pride gone. This is criminal misconduct, Gordon said, disgust plain on his face. The corporate veil is pierced. You're both personally liable. The banks will come after your homes, your accounts, everything. There's a way out, I said quietly. Vivian looked up, desperate. Sinclair Capital will buy the Crawford family's 40% voting block at 20 cents on the dollar, based on yesterday's close. That money goes straight to clearing the forged $85 million debt, which clears the criminal liability and keeps your son out of a cell. 20 cents? That's pennies. We built this company. You destroyed it, I said, tapping the ruined name card. The moment you let arrogance blind you, you thought money made you untouchable. Now you don't even own the room. I stood, straightening my jacket. You have until noon to sign the transfer papers and submit unconditional resignation from every executive position. Sign and the debt clears, you walk away broke but free. Don't, and the district attorney has warrants for both of you by 1 o'clock. I turned toward the door. Audrey and Henderson followed. Lawrence, Vivian called, her voice finally cracking, the ice completely gone. Please. I didn't stop. I walked through the double doors and left her to the silence she'd built for herself.